world.
Welcome alle sammen, welcome
Hold
to
the
a little
fast
bit of
travel.
gameplay footage with a walkthrough here about how to get through this anomaly that we find near the Ragnarsson Watchtower. So in all of my videos at these tutorials I'll give you some cool info about the Viking Age while you are watching, so you can see how to get through the anomaly or any other thing I'm walking you through, and also learn a little bit about the Viking Age. So today I'm going to speak about Utiseta, which is kind of a meditation that the Norse pagans practiced in ancient times. Directly translated, it just means sitting out. And what they would do is go out in the middle of the night. They usually go to a burial mound or some other sacred place, and they would just sit there. And by doing this, they would be able to waken the dead, gain visions, gain wisdom, and see the future, those types of things. Divination, power, wisdom, all that type of stuff. So as usual, there are just a ton of idiots in our community making stuff up about Utiseta or sitting out with absolutely no evidence or sources to back it up. So that's what I'm going to do today, is give you some of the sources, and you can decide yourself how do you want to practice it, or if you want to learn some more. So this is just a short version. If you do want to learn more, you can click on the link in the description below. That's my other channel where I go into this a lot deeper into the sources. So first source is in the myths about the gods. We find Utiseta quite a few different places in the myths. In the Poetic Edda, which is the most important one, there's a poem called Svipdagsmal. And in here, the hero Svipdag, he goes and practices Utiseta. He sits out on the burial mound of his mother in order to gain some spiritual powers and learn magic from a stepmother that he's being tormented by. So he sits out on the burial mound and awakens his mother Grua from the dead, and she gives him some advice and some magic, and he gives him 9 magical songs that will help him in his journey. So that's one. Another one comes in the very famous, probably the most famous poem, Völuspá, which is the directly translated, it's the prophecy of the witch. Many of you have probably heard of that, and that's where the Völva, or the witch, is said to sit out. Practice Utiseta before giving her prophecy to Odin and the children of Heimdall, which is humans, which is us, the listeners of the poem that she's talking about. And here she tells us about all the worlds and all the things that are going to happen at Ragnarok. So here, Utiseta is used for prophecy and divination purposes. Another source is Islänninga Bok. That's another work that mentions Utiseta, and it's not really myths, it's actually a real story about the settlement of Iceland. And in here, the famous story that many of you may have heard of, it's the speaker, or Goði, of the Althing. There was no king in Iceland, but there was just a Goði of the Althing who decided over a lot of legal matters. And he was supposed to decide whether Iceland would convert to Christianity or remain pagan. So he practiced this Utiseta. He sat out for a day and a night under an animal skin blanket, and eventually decided that the country should convert to Christianity to avoid more bloodshed and disaster. So it was used here for helping with decisions. That's 3 different mentions, but there are quite a bit more. I don't have time to go all over them now, but I will go into one law book, and that one is called Gulating. It's a law book from Norway dating all the way back to ancient times, and in the 1200s it basically makes Utiseta illegal. You were not allowed to go outside and sit. You were not even allowed to go outside and sit at night, because they knew that people were doing this to ask about fate, to gain power and wisdom, or wake up the dead, or those living in mounds. It mentions Helligsteder, which is mounds and groves and waterfalls in there too. And there's also some other texts about Utiseta that can be done at a crossroads as well. So the funny thing is with these Christian medieval law books is that they document pagan practices with the goal of making it illegal and making those practices extinct. But by writing these things down, we have a record of it almost 1,000 years later, and we can keep it alive. So that's pretty funny. Anyway, as Utiseta became illegal, people didn't stop doing this practice. They continued doing it. They just had to change it up a bit so to avoid getting killed or punished or outlawed. So simply going outside and sitting at night became illegal. So people did the same practice, but they didn't sit down. They kept moving. And this is how the famous folk magic practice of Aarsgang was born. Mostly recorded in Sweden. Anyone Swedish watching this is probably going to hear about it. But it started in the 1300s and 1400s. We have records of it all the way up until the 1900s. People were still doing this. And it was about taking a yearly walk. You go out at night once a year and then take a walk in order to gain wisdom and prophecies. And we actually have some very detailed records about how to practice this. And at the New Year, or New Year's Eve, it would have been New Year's Eve in Christian times, but in pagan times it would have been right around Halloween. So the Aarsgang, they would go out for a walk.
Here it comes.
And it was very important that they blow in the church keyhole, like, and that would renounce their Christianity temporarily, and then you would start to see visions. I go into this in a whole lot more detail in my other channel as well. That link is also in the description, and that's about it, guys. That's about all I'll say for the pagan practice of Utiseta. We have much more evidence, and I just went over the basics here, but I'll go into a lot more in other details, and like I said, if you would like to learn more about this practice, you can check out my other channel. That is in the link in the description below. Please do that if you plan on practicing this, because I've done it and I have to really warn, it can be harmful, it can be dangerous if you believe in all that type of stuff. So that's about all I'll say for this video. Vi ses nästa gång.